let's talk about how we can trace an image in Adobe Illustrator using the pen tool. And so I have my document here. I have this image that I've brought in, and I'm going to be tracing out these different logos. And so the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my layers panel, and you'll notice that I have layer 1 here. I can see it, and it has that image on it. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add a new layer. So now I have a layer 2, and that's on top of layer 1. Now there's nothing on it, so it's just showing as white. And what I'm actually going to do to my layer 1 is I'm going to lock that. What that does is it makes it so I can't move that around. That's just my tracing layer that I'm going to be referencing, my reference layer. And so I have that there, and I'm going to make sure I click on layer 2. If I have layer 1 selected and I start to try and trace using the pen tool, it's going to give me this little pencil with a little circle with a line through it. I can't draw on that layer because that layer is locked. So I have to make sure I click on layer 2. And now what I'm going to do by default, if I start to go in and trace in Illustrator, it's going to give me this white with a black stroke for my colors. And that's good, but maybe I want to be able to really see what I'm tracing, especially if you're trying to trace something more complex down the line. So I often like to go ahead and change my color to something that's totally different. And I'll even turn off the stroke. And now I can use Control+ to zoom in, and I can start tracing out my object. And so, I'll trace out this first portion, and that's going to be a straight line. And then, get the second portion, and boom. Now that's helpful because I can actually later down the line, I can change this fill color whenever I want, right? So I can come in here, I can double click on it here, and I can change it or whatever. And so I can make it the color I want, but it allows me to see what I've traced and what I haven't yet of that particular logo in this worksheet. Now sometimes that doesn't work so well. So if I get my pen tool here, and let's say I want to trace out this Beats logo, and I'm going to do it fairly quickly here, and so it's not going to be perfect. But as I start tracing this out, you're going to notice that my logo is kind of hard to see because I've traced out these other components. I don't have the ability to kind of come back in and see the rest of that B, and I'd have to guess where that B is. Now, there are two ways that I can go about making it so I can see where that is. The first way is while I'm still tracing, as long as I don't click anywhere on the screen, I can actually come over here, and you're going to see this opacity option. The opacity is how opaque or how visible or not visible something is, or see-through, okay? And so if I click on the little arrow next to it, I can bump it and I get the slider, and you can see as I bump my number down, I can see through that color more. So I can still see where I trace, and so now if I keep going, you're gonna see that, hey, my shape is starting to look more like it's supposed to, okay? As I go through and trace out this B. All right, now there is actually one other way we can do this, okay? And so then I've traced it, I can go back to full opacity. I can change the color of that. Maybe I want it green, and that's totally fine. The other way you can do this is by, instead of changing the opacity, you could also flip it around and have it be just a stroke. And then you'd be able to see what you're doing. You can even increase that stroke size, okay? If you're working and you just want to be able to see those edges. And so those are a couple of ways that can help you when you're tracing an object in Adobe Illustrator. This can work with something as simple as these logos here, or even bringing a picture in and tracing maybe a dog, and you want to use the same baseline dog and you want to trace that doggo around. These are a couple of tips that can help. I can hide that base layer later and kind of see the raw version. You can see this is not a great tracing per se. But there are other ways I'd maybe go about making that. But I can get that preview. So there you go.